Anti-abortion and anti-trans rights, but pro-child marriage? Make it make sense. My name is Brittany Page, and this is the Page Perspective. Welcome to my new subscribers and my previous subscribers, but especially the new subscribers. If you weren't already aware, I guest hosted for the David Pakman Show last week, which meant that I completed 2 hour-long shows where it was just me talking about the news. I appreciate everyone who went over there to support me by watching or leaving kind comments, and I appreciate all the people who made their way over here to click subscribe. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and seeing more from you here in the community. So let's get into it. Last month, Republican lawmakers in Missouri in both the House and the Senate introduced an abortion-homicide bill, which would result in homicide charges against those who obtain abortions. Yeah. And before we get into the other states that have attempted to implement similar legislation, let's really paint a clear picture about what this would do. According to the Kansas City Star, quote, both bills, called the Abolition of Abortion in Missouri Act, would give fetuses the same rights as human beings, which would allow for criminal charges to be filed against anyone who gets an abortion, helps someone get an abortion, or provides abortion care in Missouri, which implemented a near total ban on the procedure after last year's U.S. Supreme Court ruling, end quote. So, of course, when we see this legislation refer to the act of providing a fetus the same rights as human beings, it's never about starting child support from conception or providing state-funded health insurance from the moment of conception. It is only ever about punishing women. And of course, this isn't the first time this kind of legislation has been proposed, and I'm sure it won't be the last. Reading from reporting from the AP, quote, similar bills were introduced in 2023 in other states, including Arkansas, Colorado, Georgia, Kentucky, and South Carolina. None was advanced by legislative committee. The Kentucky measure died after it was opposed by the state's Republican Attorney General and legislative leaders. At the time, GOP House Speaker David Osborne said the Republican majority in his chamber had never contemplated passing an abortion ban without any exceptions. In South Carolina, more than 20 GOP lawmakers signed on as sponsors of a bill that would have classified abortion as homicide. As the bill garnered attention, several lawmakers withdrew their support. Lawmakers later adopted a ban on abortions when cardiac activity can be detected, generally around 6 weeks into a pregnancy and often before women realize they are pregnant. That last part is notable for 2 reasons. First, Republicans ultimately end up reaching their goal of punishing those who wish to obtain abortion by forcing them to carry a baby they may not want or may be unable to take care of. So while many Republicans might prefer to punish women in the form of criminal charges, if they can't do that, they will settle for simply forcing them to be pregnant, forcing them to birth a child with little to no government support. It's all very, you made your bed, now lie in it, which we all know is the best and healthiest way for a person to begin their life. So healthy and productive to give a person a life lesson in the form of another living being that completely depends on them for survival. Classic. Second, once Republicans' actual goals are exposed to the general public, they immediately withdraw their support, knowing how unpopular their goals and preferred ways of governing actually are. Thankfully, this exact thing happened in Missouri, where the sponsor of this abortion-homicide bill in the House withdrew it from consideration in the legislative session, which is about to kick off. Looking now to reporting from the Kansas City Star. Quote, State Rep. Bob Titus, a Billings Republican, formally withdrew the legislation just 2 days after President Joe Biden's campaign hammered the legislation, calling it cruel and draconian. Vice President Kamala Harris also criticized it on social media as outrageous. Titus told the Star late Tuesday night that he was withdrawing the legislation, saying in a text that the media has mischaracterized my interest as hostile toward women. Nothing could be further from the truth. My heart breaks for the killing of children, Titus said. He declined further comment. Titus withdrew the bill in a letter to House staff on Wednesday. So thank you, President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, for that public pressure. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and telling the public about Republican priorities is the best way to get them to reverse those priorities. And while it's good news that Bob Titus decided to withdraw his legislation, we still haven't heard about the sponsor of this legislation in the Senate in Missouri. In fact, the Kansas City Star reached out to this Senator, Mike Moon. Quote, while Titus pulled his legislation, State Senator Mike Moon, an Ash Grove Republican, has filed a nearly identical bill. Moon did not return a call for comment on Wednesday about whether he planned to withdraw his bill. And as of this video filming right now, I cannot find any statements from Mike Moon about withdrawing the legislation, nor can I find any reporting that shows that he has withdrawn this legislation. So I'm happy to be corrected on this if that does come out or if that does happen. But if the name Mike Moon sounds familiar, it's because he made headlines a few months ago when, during a debate about anti-transgender care legislation, he made it clear that he supports child marriage. Watch this exchange between anti-abortion, pro-child marriage Senator Mike Moon and State Rep Peter Meredith, with Peter Meredith being the one you will hear speaking first.
I've heard you talk about parents' rights to raise their kids how they want. In fact, I just double-checked. You voted no on making it illegal for kids to be married to adults at the age of 12 if their parents consented to it. You said, actually, that should be the law because it's the parents' right and the kids' right to decide what's best for them, to be raped by an adult. Okay?
Do you know any kids who have been
With
married
marriage.
at age 12?
That was the law.
You know
You
any
voted
kids-
not to change it.
Do you know any kids who have been married at age 12?
I don't need to.
I do. And guess what? They're still married.
Gentlemen.
Do you know any kids who have been married at age 12, he says. I love that he calls them kids, by the way, like just a complete lack of self-awareness on display here. He then goes on to say that he does know kids who were married at age 12 and they're still married. So where did he find all these married 12-year-olds that he knows? And can we get some investigative reporting on those marriages? This went viral online back in April when it happened. And Mike Moon went into cleanup mode, which started with this tweet in response to the viral clip. Quote, something that is often missing is the backstory. With regard to my answer, I did not discuss the details. A 12-year-old impregnated a minor of similar age with consent of the parents. They married and are still married to this day. I know you're thinking, Brittany, you said he went into cleanup mode. That did not clean things up. That did not at all make things better. You're right. He is still clearly defending child marriage, something he seems quite passionate about, as he also, and again, reading from local reporting here, voted no on a bill to raise the minimum age to legally get married from 15 to 16, legislation which is now part of Missouri law. I just want to make sure that it is very clear that Mike Moon is now repeatedly defending child marriage because, as you might be expecting, he posted a statement on YouTube where he said the clip that I played for you earlier was edited to make him look bad. So how does he explain the tweet where he's doubling down? How does he explain his vote against raising the age to legally marry? Don't worry about that, guys. Mike has an answer.
Let me set the record straight. I do not support adults marrying minors. In fact, if there's an instance in which an adult has recently married a minor in this state of Missouri, I'll make it a priority to remove and prohibit adults from marrying minors.
Okay, so that statement seems like one you shouldn't have to make. We shouldn't need clarification on whether elected leaders support adults marrying children. Mike goes on to talk about stories he's heard of kids who got married when they were kids, just like the one he referenced in the tweet. So he wants to make it clear, everyone, he does not support adults marrying kids. He just supports kids marrying kids. So when you're a minor, you are not old enough to make decisions related to gender or healthcare, but you are old enough to get married and become a parent yourself. Do I have that right, Mike? You're saying that you're strongly on the side of freedom when it comes to kids marrying kids, but you draw the line at trans healthcare and abortion. So much so that after all the Republicans in Missouri ran away from the abortion-homicide legislation, you're still sitting on it silently, hoping no one remembers this child marriage fiasco or highlights the fact that you're so radical you still can't abandon your dreams of criminalizing women for exercising their right to reproductive freedom. Well, we remember, and we see you, Mike. So this is something we need to stay on top of. While much of this reporting highlights anti-abortion groups that are also in opposition to the abortion-homicide legislation, there is a reason this has been proposed. We know that if they can get away with it, a not insignificant number of Republicans across the country would happily approve legislation to criminalize the act of abortion, including going so far as to extend homicide charges for women who have them. With public pressure, we can continue to ensure that attempts to enact legislation are just that, attempts. And the reason I'm talking about this is because, well, I heard very little about this story. So I think it's important to talk about it because it illustrates what the Republican Party would like to achieve if it weren't for the backlash that they receive once their goals are made public. And it's particularly helpful to look into the background of who is actually sponsoring this type of legislation. As we see with Mike Moon, it seems like they're up to no good. What do you think? I'd love to know. You can call, leave me a voicemail, 657-464-7609, or send an email to idoubitit@dollemore.com. You can also support my work here by becoming a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month. There you can join the other beautiful members, including the brand new members I'm going to thank right now. So thank you to Lori T, Ben C, Bruce R, Tracy R, Patty B, April S, Lee F, Scott A, Crystal W, Helen B, Shadow Thundercat, Mia, Sarah J, Jean M, N8T1V3_5F, I'm assuming that says something that I can't read, and Jerry D. Thank you so much, beautiful humans. I appreciate your support so much. I am so excited to see what 2024 brings us as we continue to have these important conversations, talk about these important issues, and really push for the change that we want to see. Take care, and I will see you next time.